Hey, Catherine, how you doing? Okay, I've got your work up here. So really good job including your bio images, your bio paragraphs, and your timeline information. That's excellent. Good job. Let's go ahead and jump. Oh, yeah, and you even included some quotes, so that's fantastic too. So let's go ahead and jump to the sketches. So the first thing I see here is you've got basically only one iteration of the front, maybe one concept. Now, don't forget this requires several sketches. So I think you've got three ideas for the front of the poster and then two ideas for the back of the poster. So what I would like to see is I'd like to see at least another concept for the front, something other than the truck. Now, the truck to me is really confusing because I know that Steinbeck traveled from California to New York and back again a couple of times while he was at budding, was his career was budding, but it's not specifically stated that he traveled by truck. So there's no connection between the truck and the bio information. Therefore, the meaning here is incomplete. Excuse me. Excuse me. The other thing I want to mention is that you've got these three iterations of the truck concept. And as I said, there's just no direct tie between what you've said or the information you're exposing in the bio paragraphs and the truck. So there's just a missing connection here. Also, don't forget there is no imagery allowed in this in the requirements. So if this is an illustration, the only photograph that can be used is the bio photograph on the back of the poster. This illustration, you're creating meaning using illustration and not typography. Now I know you've got this arm of the K kind of swooping over to create the fender of the truck, but that's not enough. This has got to be typographic. And if you take a look at the examples in the announcements, and I'll go to those in a second, we'll go ahead and take a look, but you want to create all of your meaning typographically as opposed to using illustrations or photographs. So I really think that we need to explore a different avenue in in the front. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead. Well, actually, I'll show you those examples in a second. We'll talk about those. So we get to the back of the poster. You still have the same truck. And now this is an illustration again, so not sure if we want to include that truck. This is kind of cool. Born in California and then traveling to New York. But the thing is that you're saying that this is telling me that he was born in California and he had been traveling his entire career, which that's not depicted in the bio information either. So really think about how you're going to do this. I guess I'm not understanding the connection between the truck, the map, the time. I mean, as I was saying, I guess I don't understand the tie between the truck, the kind of mapped out timeline, and the concept. Did you see what I'm saying? Then we jump back here, and then we have this concept here for the timeline where we have this police badge. And again, there's no indication of that in the bio information. So again, there's just missing information here. This doesn't make any sense to somebody looking at the poster. First thing I said was, why the police badges? Did you see what I'm saying? So at this point, I want to jump over to the examples. And let me just go here. We're just going to go to course announcements. We'll open that guy up. And when that opens, there's some really great examples here. And I think once I describe these examples, it'll make a lot more sense to you. So let's go ahead and take a look. Those examples are, I think they were in week 5. Yeah, they were. So, okay, so we talk about creating these kind of meanings. And I think you understand that creating meanings between the typographic depiction and the concept. So we can see here that these typographic, these visual correspondence have been created in these really powerful ways. Okay, so I want you to study each one of these and think about them, really think about them. And then we move down to the examples. Now, let me show you what's happening here. So Toni Morrison, which actually just recently passed away. So sorry to hear that, weren't you? I believe it was yesterday or today. But anyway, that's a real loss to the literary community in American culture. So at any rate, so Toni Morrison. So we see right here, this is an illustration, right? But it is typographic. It's incorporated right into the typography, so it works. Now, if this was just a regular O for Toni Morrison and we took this illustration and put it over here, it wouldn't work because you're creating meaning illustratively and not typographically. Hope that makes sense. Now we take that concept right there and we use what's called continuation to bring that concept to the back. Note the chains. We bring it to the back of the poster and assemble the timeline based on the chains. Really cool stuff, you got to admit. We come to this. This is a little bit of a different approach. So the viewer looks at this wonderful typography here and says, I mean, the first question is, wow, there's some kind of pattern right in the typography. Doesn't make any sense yet, but we get to the back of the poster and we see, okay, there's that pattern that's repeated. And we see the pattern is lifted right out of her traditional Pakistani female dress patterns, textile patterns. So now everything is tied together, right? Now it makes sense. We're deriving meaning from the image. So that's a really cool technique there. And then this one I think is probably one of my favorite examples. And this is just a phenomenal example of this visual correspondence that we've been talking about. So this designer elected to take the equality sign, the equal sign, and replace the E. It works for an E. That's absolutely that kind of visual substitution works beautifully. It's very, very legible and very understandable, but it adds meaning, and the meaning is added typographically because Martin Luther King was an advocate for equality, right? And we see that tie right here. It works as the E, and it also depicts equality. So that is just fantastic design right there. Then we come over here and we follow that and we use visual continuation there. And this designer has elected to use the equal sign for the timeline. Really, really good stuff here. And then this malaria one is also pretty cool too. So we have this meaning created typographically with the prescription, and then the tittle or the dot on top of the I is presented in red, which doesn't make sense yet. But when we come down here, we see this again, this continuation. That dot now acts as the timeline. The dot itself is representative red of the color of blood because malaria is passed as an airborne, as a mosquito contaminant, basically, that is transferred through blood through mosquito bites. So now everything makes sense, right? So I want you to think about those kind of relationships in your work and really try to establish meaning based on typography, okay? And then continue that meaning to the back of the poster in the timeline, etc. Okay, so those are my recommendations. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or if you need any clarification at all, please let me know. I'll be glad to provide in that regard. Okay, thanks, Catherine.